My next guest has been one of the most ardent GOP critics of President Trump's tax and spending cut bill. Here with me now is Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. Senator, I want to get to that in 1 second, but I do want to ask about what's going on in California. The president deploying 2,000 National Guard troops to Los Angeles against the wishes of California's governor. His defense secretary says active duty Marines may also be mobilized. And during the 2020 George Floyd protests, you said you supported governors using the National Guard to maintain order, but you did warn, quote, you really don't want to send in the U.S. military. Would President Trump deploying active duty troops cross that line?
Well, good morning, Dana. Well, first of all, we have the experience in Wisconsin where Governor Evers refused to call it the National Guard, and he let Kenosha burn, and then President Trump sent in the National Guard, and Kenosha stopped burning. So the reason you send in massive manpower is to prevent violence. What we're seeing in California is violent, and unfortunately you don't have leaders in California that are willing to prevent violence and protect federal law enforcement. This is all about protecting law enforcement as they go about their very difficult and very dangerous job. So I completely support President Trump in doing this because he does not have a partner in Governor Newsom or the mayor.
So there's the National Guard, federalizing the National Guard, and then there's a separate question, which has not happened, but the defense secretary tweeted holding out the possibility of Marines going in, active duty Marines to be mobilized. You would be okay with that?
Well, my guess is the National Guard ought to take care of the situation. Certainly did here in Wisconsin, Kenosha. Once they were deployed here, the violence ended. So again, you provide massive manpower to prevent violence. And I would be nice if Democrat politicians wouldn't keep stirring it up and keep asking people to go out there and protest.
Again, if you're not familiar with what's going on, essentially the riots that are happening in L.A., different parts of California, also some in New York also for ICE facilities, ICE vehicles, stuff like that, people that are going to and from what they call raids. I mean, they're just making arrests. But people that are going to and from there, you see protesters throwing bricks at the cars and things of that nature, and like mass scale riots, because, you know, a protest is a protest, a riot is a riot. So that's what they're talking about here. And like for her banter as to, you know, sending in Marines, nobody's sending in Marines. I mean, come on. When it happens, then report on it. All right. When you hear rhetoric surrounding things, come on. It is what it is. But let's see what they finish up here. I'm a little interested to see, because they said they were just going to get to the bill, and they're talking about the riots, and let's see where they go.
Test against lawful law enforcement actions. That's kind of hard to stomach.
So the Marines you don't think should go in, or you're saying you don't think it would be necessary?
It won't be necessary. Bring the National Guard. That's what happened here in Wisconsin, and it worked. I'm quite sure it'll work in California.
You are, as I mentioned, one of the leading GOP holdouts on President Trump's tax and spending cut bill. It does include billions of dollars to improve border barriers, to expand immigration enforcement, the kind of thing that we're seeing in California and elsewhere. You just heard Senator Mullen say the situation in California shows the need to pass the bill quickly. Do you agree?
Well, first of all, Republicans are having to, clean up the enormous messes left behind by President Biden. The open border, that's what's happening in California there. And of course, the massive deficit spending, which sparked 40-year high inflation. It's not easy. It's easy to be a Democrat.
You could just see how she's like chomping at the bit to try to refute those statements. But she knows that eventually he's going to get to say the thing that she's looking for him to say. So she's going to try to bite her tongue, hold back. You could just see she's like, she wants to vomit out, whatever she's trying to say to try to spin what he's saying now. But let's see if he eventually gets to it.
To spend money, mortgage our kids' future, promise people, never deliver on the promises, never get held accountable by the media. So it's easy to be a Democrat. It's pretty hard doing what we're trying to do. So I'm a big supporter of President Trump. He's doing things that no other president would do that need to be done. As far as it goes, I'm a supporter of what's in the big, beautiful bill. My problem is it's just because it's so hard, it's not going far enough. And if we just pass this, if it's a one and done, we will not be really addressing the major problem here in terms of massive growing deficits and debt.
Not going far enough in that, right? You're not going far enough in cutting spending. So, but you do want to increase the spending on,
right.
On border and immigration enforcement?
Yes, that's the top priority of government, is to protect Americans, to defend our border, defend our nation. So unfortunately, the Democrats opened up the border, let millions of people flood in this country, some of them violent criminals, violent gang members, members of transnational criminal organizations, human drug and sex traffickers. That's what President Trump's having to deal with. That's what Democrats left for us. So again, that takes money. And unfortunately, they also pretty well mortgaged our children's future with massive deficits. President Biden had an average deficit of $1.9 trillion. Obama, his last term, 550 billion average deficits. Trump had to do deals with Democrats, 810. Then, of course, we had the massive bipartisan spending spree in 2020, but we should have come down to a reasonable pre-pandemic level of spending and deficits. We didn't do that. The Democrats and President Biden just continue to spend. And again, now it's completely out of control. We can't accept this as a new normal.
You are, our understanding, Senate Republicans are considering changes to Medicare to offset some of the costs on the spending and tax cut bill. We're talking, of course, about a program used by more than 68 million Americans, most of them seniors.
Just so we can get to that. So the spending in Medicare, been looking at other reports and stuff like that of seeing exactly what's going on. They're looking to expand the work requirements. So what that means is that if you're an able-bodied person and you are receiving the benefit, that you at the very least need to be willing to work, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be working, right? You have to be willing to work, which means, I guess at some point, you would give your name in and stuff like that. And if a job opening came up, that you would take it. I don't understand what the big deal is with that. That should be a pretty easy thing to get done.
Is that something that you are, in fact, working on?
What we are trying to do is take a look at the abuses of the system that put at risk the benefits for the people who truly deserve them. For example, there's a great article in the Wall Street Journal written by a father of a 17-year-old autistic child who's on a 10-year waiting list for home care because he's being crowded out by single, working-age, able-bodied, childless adults. That's what Obamacare did. By the way, that's the part of Medicaid we're trying to reform is the Obamacare portion. Now they call it Medicaid Advantage. For every dollar the state puts into a procedure for a disabled child, the federal government kicks in $1.33.
So that's
Medicaid. For every dollar
what about
the state
Medicare?
puts in for but listen, because this is important.
Okay.
For every dollar the state puts in for a single adult, childless, the government puts in the federal government puts in $9. That has led to all kinds of waste and abuse. There's upcoding inside of Medicare, which also is putting at threat the benefits for people that need it. So again, there is all kinds of waste, fraud, and abuse in these programs. That's what Republicans are trying to root out. That's what President Trump is willing to do. Democrats, of course, don't care. They just don't care about spending money and mortgaging our kids' future. This is hard what we're trying to do. I think in good faith we're trying to work together, but it's very difficult.
Before I let you go, you've had some pretty harsh words about this bill. You sound like you're warming to it as you have conversations. Is that a fair assessment?
No, I've had harsh words about the fact that we're mortgaging our kids' future, that we've incurred on average $1.9 trillion deficits, and we're going to incur another $22 trillion deficits over the next 10 years, and that's probably a rosy scenario. I've had harsh words for our current situation, and my only problem with this bill is it just doesn't go far enough to address that big mess.
And you're feeling like you're in a better situation with it now, based on the talks that you've had at the White House and elsewhere?
Well, nothing's really changed. I'll be sitting down with the White House economic team. I'm finishing up a report. I'll be issuing that next week that lays out exactly what this is, gives different growth scenarios, showing how difficult it is going to be to grow our way out of this. I'm all for economic growth. We have to address spending. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem, and this bill just doesn't go far enough to address that problem.
Thank you so much for being here, Senator. I really appreciate it. My next guest.
And that's what it's well said. It's well said. It's, it's a lot of MAGA has that on their mind. Right, a lot of MAGA has it on their mind. We went into with the notion that let Doge run wild, find what's going on there, cut that amount of money, and then pass a balanced budget, reduce the deficit, all these things that are like that's what everybody was hoping for. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen. The question is it not happening because they're not willing to do it? Meaning, that's not really what the Trump agenda was going to be, or it's politics, right? It's just politics. Musk can go and say that, we should be doing this, X, Y, and Z. However, can that get done? Can X, Y, and Z get done? You still need the votes. You still need people at the end of it all to vote for the bill. And if you're cutting all their programs and you're cutting them off at the knees, they're not going to go along with it. That's the dirty little secret of Washington is it's dirty. They all say they want cuts, they just don't want cuts for them. So if everybody doesn't want something that that they're partaking in to be cut, then you can't get the votes. And unfortunately, that's how it is. If you guys are still with me, please hit the subscribe button, give me a like. Drop a comment down. This was a good video. we'll get to another one real soon. Guys, thanks a lot for coming out. Again, like, share, subscribe. We'll see you again in the next one. Thanks a lot.